Lebanon's caretaker Prime Minister criticizes Israel's expansion of its attacks on Lebanon. Overnight Israeli bombardment killed 47 in central Gaza Strip. And 3 Palestinians, including a child, have been killed in Israeli raids and strikes in the West Bank city of Tulkarm. It's 8 p.m. Cairo local time, and you're now watching Qnews. We begin tonight's bulletin with the latest developments in Lebanon.
كل المستهدفين هن مدنيين.
وضع شيء مرعب، شيء بخوف.
The Israeli occupation forces have launched airstrikes on Beirut's southern suburbs early this morning, marking the first in nearly a week. A Lebanese national news agency reported casualties including fatalities and injuries after an apartment in Ain al-Ramana, LA, was targeted in the early hours of Friday. Lebanon's caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati has criticized Israel's expansion of its attacks on Lebanon. Mikati said that the increased attacks indicate a rejection of efforts to broker a truce after more than a month of war. Mikati's comments were made in a statement following overnight raids that hit Beirut's southern suburbs, marking the first such attacks this week. Lebanon's caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati has condemned Israel's escalating attacks, accusing that they threaten peace efforts.
Lebanon's caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati has condemned Israel's intensifying attacks on Lebanon, accusing them of undermining ongoing efforts to broker a truce after more than a month of conflict. This escalation, marked by heavy bombardment in the eastern city of Baalbek, has left local residents with limited options for refuge, promoting many to seek shelter at the ancient Roman temple, an internationally protected archaeological site they hoped would provide some security. However, Baalbek Hermel's provincial governor Bashir Khidr warned that even this iconic site was no longer safe. The Israeli occupation military has posted a map on social media outlining targets across Baalbek and surrounding villages, indicating plans to widen the bombing campaign. This announcement triggered a mass exodus from the area, with tens of thousands of residents fleeing in anticipation of further strikes. The Lebanese Health Ministry reported that Israeli airstrikes in Baalbek alone killed 19 people, including 8 women. Additionally, it noted that earlier in the week, 60 people, including children, were killed in the wider Bekaa Valley. The Bekaa Valley, an agricultural region east of Beirut near the Syrian border, is known for its diverse population. In recent weeks, Israel has significantly escalated its operations in Lebanon, with ground forces crossing the southern border, airstrikes reaching as far north as Baalbek and central Beirut, and notably the assassination of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah in September. These developments mark an unprecedented expansion of Israeli aggressions, raising fears of a broader regional conflict and complicating international mediation efforts aimed at de-escalation.
Well, for more analysis, we now move to Hani in our newsroom. Hani.
Thank you, Mona. And for further analysis on the situation in Lebanon, we're now joined from Beirut by Brigadier General Bassem Yassin, the military and strategic expert. General Yassin, thank you for joining us. Now, from your point of view, why has Israel intensified its strikes on the southern suburbs of Beirut in recent hours?
Yeah, good evening. Since Israel has rejected all the attempts from the American to cease fire in Lebanon, okay, we did notice an escalation in attacks towards suburbs of Beirut and to Bekaa and to many parts in Lebanon. It looks like that from now until the election, the American elections, we will have an escalating in the situation in the south, and more shelling towards many parts in Lebanon. They want to force the Lebanese people and the Lebanese government to accept all the terms from the Israelis regarding the ceasefire and the force to pressure Lebanon into accepting many terms that will not be accepted by Hezbollah and by the Lebanese government. They want a complete surrender of Hezbollah, and despite the reality that Hezbollah is still defending the country and make some success in at the borders, they try to make more pressure that will not succeed.
Well, then in light of these recent attacks, do you think that it's still possible to reach a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hezbollah based on the American proposal?
Yeah, the American proposal, it was accepted by the Lebanese government since it will lead to a ceasefire and then sending the Lebanese army towards the south and accept the terms that are accepted. Okay, but since Netanyahu is still rejecting these terms, he wants more and more pressure on the Lebanese government and more terms that won't be accepted. That's why we cannot see any ceasefire, any near ceasefire or ceasefire in the near future. And we will have some escalation from now until new presidents in the U.S. and maybe a new mediator to come and to start the talking with Lebanon and Israel at the same time.
Sir, if you're expecting more escalation, then how long will Lebanon cope with the long-term repercussions of the war in the upcoming period?
Yeah, Lebanon is suffering too much, but he's gaining points to the negotiation by when Hezbollah still make the resistance and still holding his position in the south. Okay, when Israel reached to the point where no more advance on land, it will come to the table. When it will come to the table, Lebanon has accepted the 1701 resolution as it is without any additions. If Israel will cope with that, Lebanon is open to negotiation. If not, and still putting some new terms and requesting 1701 plus. Plus, it means the disarmament of all weapons from Hezbollah from the south of Litani and then north as well. That is not accepted by the Lebanese. Okay, when we reach the point where Israel will not have any more success in on the land and on the battles, I guess we'll start the discussion.
General Yassin, you said that you expect the escalations to continue after the U.S. elections. Now, is there any chance for the Biden administration achieve a ceasefire in Lebanon before the presidential elections?
No way. The presidential election will be after 4 days. I guess after the election is finished and the new president will show up, maybe a new administration will come, and then we have I guess we have at least 1 month before coming to the area and start negotiating again. We have 1 month to suffer and to deal with the Israeli aggression against Lebanon.
Sir, now, are there any sort of details or developments in terms of the ceasefire negotiations in Lebanon?
No, Lebanon requested a ceasefire for 15 days. On these 15 days, the Lebanese army will go to the south. It's already there, but we will send more troops in there. And the Israelis will leave the area that they are occupied now and go back to the border line. Then Hezbollah will leave the area of South of Litani and leave it to the Lebanese army. Those are the main points, and every other term or other terms is only upon the government to deal interiorly with Hezbollah and with all other parts in Lebanon in order to discuss or to find solutions for all other items, including the disarmament of all the militias and all parties in Lebanon.
Brigadier General Bassem Yassin, the military and strategic expert, thank you very much for your insights. Mona, over to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Hani. And back to our news. And U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has stated that progress has been made in understanding the requirements for effectively implementing UN Security Council Resolution 1701. During a press conference following his meeting with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Blinken emphasized that the U.S. made good progress regarding understanding those requirements, but said there is still work to be done. He noted that these efforts are essential for achieving a diplomatic resolution, including through a ceasefire.
To the crisis, it's important to make sure that we have clarity, both from Lebanon and from Israel.
Lebanese civilians in Beirut have condemned Israel's recent airstrikes, calling them an attempt to pressure ceasefire negotiations and fearing they may hinder recent progress. Early Friday morning, Israel carried out a series of powerful airstrikes on Beirut after ordering residents to evacuate, marking the first such strike in days on the densely populated area. For a second consecutive day, Israeli occupation forces have bombarded areas around Baalbek in eastern Lebanon after issuing evacuation notices to residents. Families forced to flee the violence have taken shelter in the nearby town of Deir al-Ahmar. A local official in Deir al-Ahmar reported that authorities are struggling to meet even a fraction of the displaced families' needs. Thick smokes blanketed Beirut's southern suburbs today, hours after Israeli airstrikes targeted the area. The conflict in Lebanon has sharply escalated over the past 5 weeks, with Lebanese Health Ministry reporting that most of the 2,800 deaths recorded over the past year have occurred during this period. The death toll from Israeli airstrikes on Lebanon since October 2023 has risen to 2,865, with injuries reaching 13,047. Information obtained on October 31st indicates that airstrikes on multiple areas of Baalbek region in eastern Lebanon killed 7 people and injured 14 others. In response to the crisis, the Lebanese government has established 1,130 refugee centers for the displaced, with 948 currently at full capacity. As of now, there are 189,174 displaced individuals residing in official refugee centers. And moving on to the latest developments in Gaza. The World Health Organization has announced that a third phase of the polio vaccination campaign will begin tomorrow in a part of the northern Gaza Strip, following a postponement from October 23, 2024 due to access issues. Humanitarian poses intense bombardment and mass evacuation orders. The final phase of the campaign aimed to administer a second dose of the novel oral polio vaccine type 2 NOPV2 to approximately 119,000 children under 10 in Gaza. The WHO and UNICEF stated that a humanitarian truce is needed to carry out polio vaccination campaign. Overnight Israeli bombardments of central Gaza Strip has killed 47 people and injured dozens more. The attacks struck the city of Deir al-Balah, the Nusayrat camp, and the town of Zuwayda. Eyewitnesses reported that after the initial strikes, residents rushed to assist those affected, only to be targeted again by subsequent bombings. At least 6 Palestinians have been killed this morning as Israeli warplanes and artillery targeted multiple residential areas in Khan Yunis and the Nusayrat refugee camp. In Khan Yunis, local resources reported 3 Palestinians killed and others injured by Israeli shelling on 2 vehicles west of Al-Qarara. Meanwhile, at 3 more, including a child, were killed and several others injured in an Israeli strike on the Nusayrat refugee camp in central Gaza. Smoke is rising above northern Gaza more than a year into the ongoing war. Israeli forces have forcibly displaced around 1 million people from the north, including Gaza City, following a mass evacuation order at the war's outset. The UN reports that at least 60,000 people have recently been fled to Gaza City from Jabalia and the northern border town of Beit Hanun and Beit Lahia. Philip Lazzarini, chief of the UN Palestinian Refugee Agency, has reported that Israeli bulldozers damaged the UNRWA office in the Nur Shams camp in the West Bank. Lazzarini stated on the social media platform X that the office was severely damaged and rendered unusable. However, the Israeli military denied causing damage to the building. This incident follows the recent passage of laws by Israel's parliament that would effectively ban UNRWA's operations in Israel and the Palestinian occupied territories. The UN Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territories, Francesca Albanese, has called on the United Nations to classify the Palestinian crisis as genocide. Albanese also proposed suspending Israel's UN credentials, condemning its 57-year occupation and non-compliance with international resolutions. She argued that labeling the situation as war crimes fails to reflect the severity of the harm inflicted.
It's so difficult to prove intent. Why don't you go with war crimes and crimes against humanity? Because it's genocide. Because if you go to a doctor and you have...
3 Palestinians, including a child, have been killed in Israeli raids and strikes in the West Bank city of Tulkarm. The official Palestinian news agency Wafa reported that a large number of Israeli vehicles and heavy bulldozers stormed the city and advanced towards the Noor Shams camp. During the raid, a medical clinic operated by the UN Palestinian Refugee Agency UNRWA was destroyed and several roads were razed. The death toll from the Israeli onslaught since October 7th, 2023 has reached 43,259 reported fatalities, with an additional 101,827 individuals injured. Over the last 24 hours, Israeli forces have carried out 3 massacres against families in the Gaza Strip, resulting in the deaths of at least 55 Palestinians and injuries to 186 others, according to medical reports. Now we move on to the latest developments in the United States days ahead of the presidential election.
We will build what I call an opportunity economy.
We will make America great.
We're ready to fight for it. As one people, we are moving forward.
We will make America safe again.
Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump has said no president has done more for Puerto Rico than I have in a roundtable. Trump is addressing a joke by comedian and podcast host Tony Hinchcliffe, where he said, "There is literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. I think it's called Puerto Rico," Hinchcliffe said.
And they're taking their prison population, putting them in buses, and bringing them to our border. Venezuela's got half their prison population.
Former President Donald Trump has used anti-immigration rhetoric to court voters during a ratify in Nevada. Trump told his supporters that the United States is an occupied country and promised voters that November 5th would mark Liberation Day for the nation. Trump held his event in Henderson, Nevada, one of the 7 battleground states, along with Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan.
So they can dump off illegal migrants. They have an app. Can you believe it? They have called. They have cell phones. They have air.
Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris has warned supporters at a Phoenix rally that Republican Donald Trump would scale back Obamacare and other health care programs if he wins the White House. The 2010 Affordable Care Act provides coverage to roughly 40 million Americans as part of the country's patchwork of health insurance programs, a political liability for Democrats when it was signed into law in 2010. The law is now broadly popular with the public. In response, Trump said he never wanted to get rid of the program on his Truth Social platform. Harris also brought up Trump's comments about women at a Wisconsin rally on Wednesday.
Could deny people with pre-existing conditions. Well, we are not going back. We are not going back.
Well, that brings us to the end of our news bulletin. Here is what we've been covering. Lebanon's caretaker prime minister criticizes Israel's expansion of its attacks on Lebanon. Overnight, Israeli bombardment killed 47 in central Gaza Strip. And 3 Palestinians, including a child, have been killed in Israeli raids and strikes in the West Bank city of Tulkarm. This concludes our news bulletin for the hour. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNews EGY to stay informed. For real-time updates, connect with us on the UMS digital platform. Watch it. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more updates on Q News.